Where it concerns the world of streaming over the past week, and really over the 4th of July weekend, I've been hearing nothing but nonstop discussion on the Terminal List. It seems the series is on everybody's radar, and there's a lot of shows on the air right now. But as of today, this is apparently, I think this was posted on Chris Pratt's Instagram, this is the #1 series on Amazon right now. So it seems to have really landed well, and in terms of audience discussion, I've been hearing nothing but really endless praise for the show. Critics, it's a different story, as it usually is. And I've wanted to cover this sooner. Again, it's been on my radar, too, for some time, largely because Chris Pratt's involved. And I've been pretty open that I'm a huge fan of the guy. I love him as an actor, and, just as a role model. He seems to be such a neat guy. And I've really enjoyed his work for some time. But I debated whether or not, or what approach to take, because the angle to which I'm approaching the Terminal List, I like to be more informed when I'm covering a series based on the storyline and where the show will go. This is very much a fresh look. I wanted to read the book in advance. I'm currently 6 weeks out on hold from my library in terms of the audiobook, so it's a bit of a wait. So I guess maybe I'm going to watch the series first and then maybe read the book. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I'm covering it in advance. So maybe it's not going to be the most informed take that you'll hear, but I'm going to try and sift through what I can in regards to information. I'm also looking at several trailers today that hopefully will give a good window to the show. And perhaps for you, you're looking at this as well from a first impression perspective. So hopefully it's a good introduction. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the Terminal List. For those of us, again, who have seen maybe the headlines and just the discussion about it, that it's really seemed to land on, again, everybody's minds. For those of you who need a background, like myself on the show, and I've already skimmed this, but I guess I can take a second look. This is the official synopsis according to IMDb. The series follows James Reese after his entire platoon of Navy SEALs is ambushed during a high-stakes covert mission. Reese returns home to his family with conflicting memories of the event and questions about his culpability. However, as new evidence comes to light, Reese discovers dark forces working against him, endangering not only his life, but the lives of those he loves. So basically, to skim that synopsis down a bit, it's a military political thriller action series. That's kind of what you're looking at. And maybe some elements there in terms of the plot seem slightly familiar to other productions that I've seen, but it still sounds good. I mean, it sounds very sophisticated. I like watching Navy SEAL stories. And hopefully, I mean, from what I've seen, again, the response from the audience has been nothing short of this being an exemplary show. But I've also seen feedback that the military angle to the story is handled very respectfully, as well as the devotion to the source material. And it's got a good cast lineup. Again, Chris Pratt's at the center point. You also have Constance Wu, Taylor Kish, and probably other names in here that I'm not currently seeing. But either way, looks like a good production. There's a lot of promise going in, and I've heard nothing again but that it's delivered. Let's go ahead and get a good perspective for the show on its own merits. Like I said, I got a bunch of teasers lined up for this. Teaser/trailers. I'm actually going to do 2 videos covering this to get the best window possible. But I'm going to start with the teaser. I mean, if this is anything like the Tomorrow War in regard to quality from a production standpoint, I haven't seen the movie yet. I have it ready to go. I just got a lot of movies I have to watch, but, I mean, that one looked good from the trailer. Again, that seemed to also land well with audiences, and maybe not be the best respected among critics. Which is, again, typical these days. I'll get to that later, but let's start with the teaser and get a good window for the show.
Almost ready to begin, James.
Seems to be high-stakes delivery. But starting with Chris Pratt, you're like, okay, immediately I'm engaged.
What happened?
They're all gone. Everybody's gone.
This is very realistic. I think of many stories of soldiers that have come home from war. I'm assuming this is going to go into like PTSD or just the regrets of the war scene.
12 SEALs lost, and no one in command even issues a statement.
Losing brothers or basically family.
Who has the capability to alter our signals, change our records?
Evil minds that plot destruction.
Brother, that is God's hand kind of shit.
Headaches, paranoia, memory confusion.
Well, I'm not crazy.
You need somebody to help you prove it.
It's good. I can see this engaging very well with, especially among the veteran audience.
Find peace knowing this mission is over.
Death and hatred to mankind.
They're not at
But I would
war.
just say mainstream America, I think
We're
the series
home.
really
There's
is
a
going to land.
difference.
I mean, if it hasn't already.
I can't let you keep doing this. I think something happened to me on that op.
It's gelling well. I mean, it is filmed like many other war stories that I've seen, but the quality that you expect for a story with such promise based on the synopsis is there. And with, again, the high cast attributions, I'd expect the show would deliver on that front. And also, I believe this is being put out from, let me see if I'm correct on the director here. I thought I heard his name. Let me see. Antoine Fuqua. Well, he's involved. It's just he's doing one episode out of, I believe, 8. So there's a good mix of directors. But Antoine Fuqua, I've looked at a couple pictures in the past from him. He's pretty revered as well. So again, I would expect going into this based on that trailer, but the series is really going to deliver. It looks very well done. I mean, again, as I stated, at this point, you know it's landed well based on some of the headlines that have come across from Amazon's own statements and from their actors. That one statement about it being number one in the world from Chris Pratt directly. But every outlets have been picking it up. I can see this landing very well with veteran audiences, especially those who have experienced similar situations. This is like hyper-realistic. I can even see the nods that, from my angle, not being most familiarized with the specific events and the characters of the story, I can see undertones that marry themselves best to parallel experiences in the real world. And just the quality overall, what you expect for a military political thriller, it's there. Let me go ahead and queue up. I mean, that was a pretty good teaser overall, a pretty substantial one at 2 minutes. So maybe some of you would say, we don't even need a second look. Well, there's the official trailer. It's a bit longer. I'll go ahead and cue that up, but I expect, of course, it would follow in suit of the overall trailer. Let's see. Again, I like to get a big window.
Investigations are still ongoing into the failures of Operation Odin Sword.
Failed missions resulted in the death of 12 Navy SEALs.
Lieutenant
Yeah, they're definitely going down the PTSD angle.
Can you outline the details of your mission?
Recognizable framing of that type of scene, but it's very well done.
According to audio logs, you went dark on comms roughly 4 mics in. Why?
I'm also assuming a lot of flashback scenes as well. The way that this is being filmed, of course.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
So this seems Anton Fuqua has a deeper credit maybe than just 2 episodes. At least that's what was listed on IMDb on a first glance.
We're gonna get through this, okay?
Want to tell me what happened? Somebody fed us bad intel. It was a setup. If I'm right, we need to act on this. I need names.
If there's a connection to you and your men, I'll find it.
Answers or blood? Blood. Where's James?
It's a good script, too.
Sure your fugitive is a Navy SEAL.
Good line writing.
Bunch of people tracking you right now, so just lay low.
It's deep.
I have 12 men flying home in caskets right now. This is personal. Oh, you wanted in on the fray. Now, you're in the battlefield. There's evil.
Oh yeah, Jack Courtney's in this. I forgot about that. I like him too.
Possibly imagine.
See, I told you there's a bigger cast than even I guessed it too. It's good. Excellent execution, beautiful delivery.
Stay off my list.
I can see why it's responding very well with audiences. This looks good. Like I said, I think it does, in many ways, it looks like a mainstream political thriller. There are just certain elements there with this type of story, as well as the specific moments of PTSD. That's a very recognizable way of filming it. But I like that it's a more distant shot. I like how, at least it's edited as well in the trailer, that it just pulls you right out of the flashback scene in terms of the action. It's very well handled, in my opinion. It looks like a good premiere production from Amazon. I would expect with the care of it they take into some of their shows, well, maybe not all of them. I mean, Lord of the Rings, that might be a different story. But at least that one's inexpensive, like this one. But I would imagine this story's going to land much better, just based on what we've been hearing about that show. But this is very sufficient, in my opinion. In terms of the overall audience response, we've seen semblances already with some of the news updates that have come out, but I think this is going to land very well, specifically if it hasn't already, with the veteran audience. I think a lot of people who've served overseas, especially in the Navy SEAL capacity, and who've experienced the tragedies of war and PTSD, I think they're definitely going to respond to this. I think for people who have been fans of a novel, as I've heard, this is very respectful of the novel's original storyline, and it adapts it faithfully. I think they're going to tune in for this one. I think mainstream Americans, some people, this is termed a bit differently. I hear, different references for other shows, for example, like Yellowstone, that's referred to as a conservative piece of entertainment. And not, I don't think necessarily in the political sense, just that the show seems to have such a wide pool of ratings with Americans nationwide, whereas maybe some of her shows tend to have a more fringe audience, especially among mainstream content these days. I think this is going to do very well with just being like a traditional streaming show. Good programming, faithfully done, well executed, gritty story, beautifully presented in terms of the action shots as well. And Chris Pratt starring. Well, again, aside of our names, like Jai Courtney, I forgot. But Anton Fuqua is at least to some degree helming this. Although, again, based on the way this trailer referenced him, he seems to be intricately involved, more so than just a 2-episode director capacity. But you've also got Constance Wu, Taylor Kitsch. I've been a fan of Taylor Kitsch for a long time. And Chris Pratt starring in the main role. I think that's an immediate draw for people like myself who've been fans of him. And, his movies tend to do very well in regards to not only feedback, but commercial response. I know Jurassic World Dominion, for example, is not necessarily the best reviewed movie, but people seem to be flocking to it. Why? Well, partly because I think it's, it's got a substantive cast beyond with the ever previous Jurassic World movies, and it's sort of, again, that bringing 2 generations of a franchise together, but also Chris Pratt as a headliner. Again, I think the audience, like me, continues to show up for every Chris Pratt movie. It's just been the case. Or show, even. I mean, the Tomorrow War movie succeeded, and some of his ever past movies, I think, have largely done well. I've been a longtime fan, and in regards to him being, amidst the big pool of celebrities these days, it's cool to see such a role model male star come out of what oftentimes seems to be a cesspool of an environment. I also like the fact that you're speaking as a Christian, you have an actor who's very open about his faith. It's nice to see such a role model figure spotlighted, whereas with other people, and he seems to be generally liked among the people that he's worked with, even though it seems there are people out there that have a hate boner for the guy. And I'll tell you, I was considering bringing up some stories to at least cite them earlier on when I was thinking about this video, but I'm like, there's just too many. I was writing up my list, and a lot of these stories, I'll just say if you're not familiar, there's really no basis to half of them. A bunch of them are exaggerated or they're lies. Some are just patently absurd on their face. Other stories, including some that were cited in an article that he did, I forget with what outlet it was released, but some of the stories got to him. They got to me as I heard about half the cruel things people have said to him. And again, those stories are just nothing short of, they're problematic. They're extremely troublesome. And people have just been running with them. And yet, most people, fittingly, do not give much authority to either the major trades who are also really railing against this show. I think because of Chris Pratt. I think that's easily part of it because it seems that there are just people out there that do not like him. Even though he seems to be a very kind guy. Everywhere I've looked, everybody he's worked with, James Gunn even offered a public tweet in response to half the stuff that these people were bringing up. Again, if you haven't looked into the stories, I'll cite them in the comment section down below, but they're just, some of them are funny, others are just absurd, but if you, or just, quite frankly, I think evil. But if you want to get a perspective on what exactly has been said, and a lot of the allegations that have been thrown out to mischaracterize the poor man, you can look at the stories I'll cite down below. It's quite an exorbitant list. But again, like I said, the audience seems to be there for him. I am. I don't give those stories half a shred of credit anymore. And the Terminal List, even beyond just the Chris Pratt attribution, seems to really be sparking with audiences. The trailer sparks with me. I will also say when it comes to Chris Pratt, he really embodies the soldier figure here. And it's interesting to see how many different movies he's been in. He has a very distinct look for his characters. To me, in this case, and maybe it's the hairline, maybe it's just the energy he's carrying to the role, he comes across like a wounded military vet that's trying to recover himself from a very bad situation. I'm finding myself believing in the performance quite a bit based on the character that he's portraying from a physical standpoint. It looks like a solid series. I can't wait to watch it for myself. And I'm sure based on, if you've seen the series at this point, because I know I'm covering this a bit late, you can certainly refer to your thoughts down below in the comment section, as well as perhaps people, might be coming at this from an angle like me, who we've seen, the outpouring. Maybe you haven't even seen it. You just maybe have heard the name Terminal List and not maybe much beyond that. What are your thoughts on a first impression level if you happen to be like me coming from that angle and you're not necessarily the most familiarized with the source material, or maybe you are and this is a first look in terms of the series adaptation for you? Feel free to let me know whatever your thoughts are on the Terminal List down below. But like I said, the series has already delivered very well from what I've seen. I think there's a lot of potential based on what I've seen from the teaser and the trailer. I'm going to do a second video for it to get the best perspective on the story possible. But as far as, if this were a first entrance, this would be the only thing I was looking at it in order to best gauge the content, what my feelings would be in terms of watching it. It's not just the casting of Chris Pratt or the casting overall of Taylor Kitsch, Constance Wu, Jai Courtney. But the presentation, the execution, it's a very sophisticated project. I like the multiple layers they're investigating, specifically with the military storyline and the depiction of certain stories that are very familiar to reality, like the PTSD thing. I think it looks like a very well-helmed show overall. I think the execution is great, and it's a great teaser for what looks to be a very good show. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.